The Hangar Z Podcast welcomes Chief TFO from the Los Angeles Police Department, Manny Dickerson, and Lee Owen from Canyon AeroConnect.
We all know when the airship gets overhead, the expectation, whoever's in that ship, is to perform. And communication and that connectivity to the ground units is key. That's so important for a TFO's job. And you got to remember that as cops, we have a lot of responsibilities. As a TFO, 90% of your job is communication.
Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor Magazine. In this episode, host Jack Schonely sits down for an in-depth conversation with Manny Dickerson of the LAPD and Lee Owen from Canyon AeroConnect to discuss tactical radio communications. In this conversation, Manny and Lee share their personal journeys in the field of aviation communication. They explore the importance of effective communication for tactical flight officers and challenges they face and impact of technology on the operations. Plus, they discuss the evolution of radio technology for TFOs, the significance of maintenance and communication systems, and the training necessary to manage workload effectively. The discussion emphasizes the need for preparedness and the impact of reliable communication systems in ensuring officer safety and operational success. Thank you to our sponsors, Summit Aviation, Canyon AeroConnect, and Airbus.
Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z Podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like you're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, through the shotgun, through something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
It's time for your Heli Life giveaway buzzword. Listen up and remember this word because you'll need it to enter for a chance to win exclusive Heli Life gear. Ready? This episode's buzzword is TFO. Visit contest.verticalhelicast.com to enter the buzzword.
Welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor Magazine. I'm your host, Jack Schonely, and with me today for at least a little bit from the bunker at MHM Publishing in Canada, John Gray, the creator of the Hangar Z Podcast. John Gray. John, how's everything in the bunker?
Commander, everything's good for right now. We're doing good. It's actually really cool to be up here. We talk about MHM, Vertical Valor, and Vertical Magazine all the time. Thankful to be a part of the Vertical Helicast platform, and usually the meetings we have talking about strategy and all this stuff is done remotely. So it's really cool to be in Canada outside of Toronto in person to interact with the folks that make Vertical what it is on a daily basis. You know, it's I think the industry's most trusted rotorcraft magazine, and it's really cool to be here.
Good. I'm glad you guys are getting a lot done and having some fun while doing it because it's a great crew, a great team. I'm proud to be a small part of it too. It's wonderful. So I'm glad that you're there, enjoying the bunker and hanging out with everybody, especially the people that are involved in this. Rob was just on a second ago. He's probably standing there. It's great. Rob and Dave do so much for us. So thank you very much for everything on the editing end of this podcast. So let's get to it. While we have John for a few minutes, we've got a couple guests today. One's a return guest, one's a first guest. And the topic today is really going to be a lot about communication. And so I'll start by introducing our two guests. With us today is Lee Owen. He's the business development manager from Canyon AeroConnect. Lee, welcome to the Hangar Z Podcast.
Howdy, guys. Good to be here.
Hey, it's good to have you, Lee. We've been talking about this.
Long-time listener, first-time guest.
Good. And we've been talking about this for a while, and we finally got it done. And to join us in the conversation today is the return guest, fresh back from Cancun, Mexico, Manny Dickerson. Manny Dickerson, he's the LAPD Chief TFO. He's a pilot / Chief TFO at LAPD Air Support. Manny, welcome back to the Hangar Z.
To my mentor, my teacher, my hero, my TFO instructor, my pilot instructor, Jack Schonely. Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here. Just as nervous as the first time doing it. But you guys are fantastic, and I'm happy and honored to be able to support such an organization and a podcast like this. I'm honored to be asked to return, and I can't tell you how much positive feedback I have gotten since I've done the first one. It's just been incredible. So to be welcomed back speaks volumes to me, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Well, we're honored to have you, Manny, and we're going to talk about here in a little bit. The clock is ticking for Manny. He's getting close to pulling the pin. However you want to, different agencies say different things, but retirement is coming close. So we're really happy to have you back on, Manny, to talk about this topic today about communication, specifically with technology. So before we get into the nuts and bolts, let's give an overview from both of you, both of your perspectives. Manny's he's evaluating equipment. He's using the equipment. He's used it for decades. Lee is in the technical side of it, in the business side of it, with a unique background, which we'll also get to. But let's start with you, Lee. Give us your basic overall thoughts and philosophy on tactical radio communication.
Well, my basic thoughts are, you have the three tenets, right? You got to aviate first, you got to navigate second, and you got to communicate third. So if you can't communicate very well and you're not getting, you can see everything, you can do everything, but if you can't tell anybody about it, it didn't happen, or you can't solve what's happening. And, or you can't prevent something on the ground that you're seeing. So to me, communications are key to everything that these guys do in the air. From my time in the Air Force all the way to my customers that I have now. Again, communication is key to what you're doing, and it's literally what I've done my entire life.
Good. That's what I was looking for, Lee. Manny, share with us communication and tactical communication, your thoughts.
Well, when I think about that question, I think about connectivity. Broadcasting real-time information exchange, whether it be a short range or long range, in a timely manner. The radio connectivity must have the ability for the operator, the TFO, to accurately input frequencies and channels in a timely manner. The ability to clearly communicate, it exemplifies the philosophy of empowerment, leadership, command presence, because we all know when the airship gets overhead, the expectation, whoever's in that ship, is to perform. And communication and that connectivity to the ground units is key. That's so important for a TFO's job. And you got to remember that as cops, we have a lot of responsibilities. As a TFO, 90% of your job is communication. Think about that. 90% of your tactics, your insight, your experience, your knowledge has to come through communications to people who are separated from you, from the ground. The TFOs separate from all those senses of feeling things on the ground, smelling things on the ground, having the hair stand up. I mean, we're separated. So our observations that we see and interpret needs to be effectively communicated to the units on the ground effectively. So to me, that philosophy of tactical communication is huge for a TFO.
Perfectly stated, Manny. That was really good. And John, while we have you here, why don't you give us your thoughts about communication? You were both a TFO and a pilot and a ground officer. I mean, you've been there. Talk about what this topic in general terms from your perspective.
Yeah, I think on the podcast, we talk about all kinds of technology and different tools that we have at our disposal as an air crew all the time. And the one tool that we cannot do without is our ability to communicate. If you take that radio away from us in flight, we're of no use to anybody. So with that in mind, we look at different ways of effectively communicating. There's a difference between, as a TFO, going overhead and talking about what you're seeing, painting a picture in a way that is just tying up airtime, becoming a nuisance, and really not being effective for the crews on the ground. Whereas our goal, and Manny, I'm curious to hear kind of how you trained to this as the chief TFO at LAPD. how do we take these young TFOs and train them to speak in a way that's effective and efficient, to be conscious of how much airtime you're taking up. That way, if someone on the ground has something of pertinence to add to what's being broadcast, they can get in. There's so many nuances that go into how we communicate, how effective and how efficient the things we say are. It's the basis of our job. You know, we talk about the US world, the drone world. Those folks are dealing with the same challenges that we have from a communication standpoint. You can give anybody a mic and a radio and say, hey, use this. But there's a difference between having it and using it well. And we really need folks to use it well, you know? So I guess I'll pose the question back to Manny. You know, you guys, your program is a model for not only the nation, but the world in how you train TFOs. Can you talk about some of the systems and methods you have in place to take this street police officer, street cop, and train them to effectively communicate words that are important?
One of the common questions I get is, what's the number one reason people fail out of our training program? It varies. It really does. It could be from navigation to tactics and sometimes communications. And I like to see that. Well, unfortunately, I see that more than I would like to, because when I get a street officer from the who did an excellent interview, has an outstanding package, has tenure on the job, he's a police officer, so the expectation for them to have the command presence, good communication skills, I don't know what happens to it when they get in the front seat of a helicopter. I think it's a part of it's self-implosion. And I think it's a little bit of stress. I think it's a lot of it's nerves. So what I find is that when they get in the cockpit, they clam up. The expectation for them to perform is gone when it comes to communications. So our goal is to get them on the radio as much as possible. We go to a lot of calls. I mean, we could drill over and over. I could bring out a list of locations and we can navigate, drill over and over. But the real time experience of communicating to officers on the ground only comes to go into every single call, from a 211 silent to a 459 in progress, a burglary in progress, to a neighbor dispute, which really doesn't make the ground officers happy. But it's all in the spirit of getting that officer on the radio, breaking those barriers of being nervous and having them communicate. And then the other thing we do is that we, as much as we resist getting on the radio, if they mess something up, we bite our tongue and we let them figure it out. They're only going to learn if they only figure things out for themselves. So in a sense, we have them overwork the call. When we get to a location, whether it be a drill or an actual radio location, and they're not talking, when I question them, why aren't you saying anything? The question back to me is, I really don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And I get it. So what I tell them to do is just start with painting the picture. Everything you go to, start with painting the picture. And once they start painting the picture, describing what they see, which comes natural to them as a street cop, the juices start flowing. And what I mean by that is the cop starts coming out. For an example, we do a drill to a Bank of America, and he nails it perfectly over the location, did all the steps perfectly. And then he doesn't say anything. And I'll tell him, start by painting the picture.
Yeah.
So it's Air 3, we're going to be over the Bank 211 at the Bank of America, which is on the northwest corner. I got the major doors and windows facing eastbound. I got normal activity going in and out of the bank with the security guard in front. Boom. Yep. You just became a cop in the helicopter. And they didn't even realize it. But then the other question comes, do I really have to tell them that the Bank of America is on the northeast corner? I mean, it's 3rd Division. Don't they know that? Do you know that ground officer coming to that call, if it's his first month at this division or his 12th month at this? We don't know. And what you're saying is for free. It's good information, and it's coming from your experience of you going to a Bank 211 100 times. What's a good approach? What's good cover? What's good concealment? Do you have one or the other, or do you have both? Both. What exposes these officers? What do you see that's normal? If it's a Bank 211 on a busy day and there's nobody coming in or out, what is your instinct telling you?
Yeah.
Maybe say everybody's on the ground being held at gunpoint. So what you have to say is based on your experience, and it's important. So yes, say it. So what I'm talking about is when they're in training, we have them almost overwork the call. I want them to describe that alley. I want them to describe that building. I want them to describe the doors and windows. I want them to describe the activity or no activity. If there's a drive-through at a restaurant or a fast food restaurant and it's stacked all the way to the street, man, maybe thinking there's a 211 in progress and everyone's on the ground. That's your experience telling you that. So point things like that out. And then as they move on and progress, we want them to find that balance. Because now take that overworking a call, because we know you know what to say. Now find that balance where you want to feed that information to the officer. When do you want to give it to them? You don't want to give them to it all at once while they're still 5 minutes away, 3 minutes away, because they're going to forget by the time they get there. Find that balance is when they're approaching, and spoon feed it to them so they can make appropriate decisions on how they want to approach that location. So back to your question, how do we train them? We have them on the radio as much as possible and work the call, overwork the call verbally until they prove to us that they know what they're doing. They know what to say. They can recognize things from an aerial platform. And now find your balance and be that TFO that you need to be.
That's 5 minutes of gold right there for our listeners, by the way. 5 minutes of gold right there, because everything Manny just said that was perfectly stated. And I'll just add a couple things and then we'll get back to you, John. A couple things. That could be Glenn Plahy talking right now. The other people that have sat in that desk that Manny's in right now, including myself, that could be Rick. That could be, it could be a lot of different people over the years. Cole Burnett. We had that philosophy for a long time and we fine-tuned it, but Manny just put it together in a perfect little bundle for you. I'll add a couple more things. One is that the TFO trainers, which are so vital. Manny was one. I was one before Chief TFO stuff. That is really the key, because mine was Frank King and then others, but Frank King, and I remember going to calls and Frank saying, okay, let's debrief that. You described that location and you used 30 words. I could have used 6 and described the same thing. And I go, really? Let's hear it. And then he'd describe it and I'd go, oh my gosh, he can do that. That's amazing. So that has a lot to do with the training aspect too, is debriefing each call with the trainer who has learned to be clear and concise, because none of us walk into the first day and are clear and concise by the standard that we're looking for. Nobody is. Everybody has to learn that because we are used to another way of doing it. And then lastly, the overall communication, just keep this in mind. Manny mentioned it, how people get locked up. We've all done that too as a new person, but not saying anything. Now you're just burning jet fuel and making noise. And there's no value in you being there at all. As a matter of fact, you might be interfering with the call by being there if you're not saying something. That doesn't mean that you force things to be said, but like Manny said, describe what you're looking at. Nobody's here yet except for you. So yes, you don't have a guy running out the bank shooting a gun and with a bag full of money maybe, but is there still something to describe to the people coming? Of course there is. And people just have to learn that. So really good, Manny, in putting that together. John, I cut you off. Go ahead with what you wanted to follow up on.
I've got a question for Manny and a question for Lee. So I'll start with Manny, and then after that, I'm going to have to go back into the bunker. You're at MHM. But for Manny, and I guess it's more of a general comment followed by a question, law enforcement agencies, by and large, have gone to an MDC in their units and the police cars on the ground, where usually you're pressing on scene, you're doing all your radio communication virtually. You're hitting a button for most things. That changes obviously when you get out of the unit and you're now using your handheld, but most officers are doing a lot of their communication in their unit by button. So what I found is that's really made the training of these TFOs difficult, because when they get to aviation, they're not very familiar, they're not very comfortable talking on their radio because they haven't done it a ton. So my question now is, have you seen that at LAPD, and how have you overcome that if you have seen that?
Thank you to our sponsor, Canyon AeroConnect. Canyon AeroConnect has been a trusted leader in airborne law enforcement communication since Paul Wolfsburg introduced the first flight phone in 1970. While our name has evolved, our commitment to innovation and quality remains strong. Contact us today at CanyonAeroConnect.com to explore our latest mission-critical solutions.
I would say no to that. I haven't seen it. I think fortunately, and this is just fortunately, we have a unit, and I wish all airborne law enforcement units had the same practice, that we're out all the time. So the ground officers are used to talking to the airship. They are used to that communication. So when the seasoned officer who made the outstanding pool comes up on an opportunity to loan, they have that experience being on the ground talking to the airship, so they try to emulate it, or at least practice what they've heard in the past. I see your point where if you don't have an air unit, or you get one once in a while, that might be the case, but I haven't seen that yet. Yeah, and I like probably to contribute that to the frequency and reps that ground officers have with the air unit. I think that played a big part, and it's a good transition for us. I think the only thing that misses is the things that little gleam that we need to see. That things that you can't teach, when it comes to communication, tactics, navigation. But back to your question, that I haven't seen.
Okay. It seems like even outside of the direct communication with the airship, just basic communications I see changing from officers, because they're just, again, pressing buttons on the MDSC a lot versus using the actual radio to communicate with dispatch or other units or whatever it might be. So it's an interesting, I think there's unintended consequences sometimes with technology that we're putting in our units. And I think that from an air support perspective can be a challenge when you've got a whole generation of young officers who don't have a lot of experience talking on the radio, now sitting in a cockpit and trying to figure out how to do that. The other, I guess, question I have, and it's a statement and then followed up with a question for Lee, and then I'll have to bail again. But in my agency, we're on the, I guess, far western side of San Bernardino County. Most of our pursuits, all of our pursuits that went westbound would end up in LA County. And as you get into the eastern basin of LA County, some of the cities that you're flying over are literally square miles. They're tiny. And so as a TFO, your job then is to communicate, in theory, with the ground units that this suspect might end up in. It might be a small town where you're tactically trying to keep eyes on the suspect and also manipulate your radio so you can effectively communicate with units on the ground. Technology has been somewhat problematic for those TFOs to this day, I would say. Recent technology, including what you guys have produced and what you're outfitting police aviation units with, has helped kind of make that tactical usage of the radio easier. Can you talk about how you guys have done that and what you've seen when it comes to that tactical, physical usage of the radio and how you're making it easier?
I think one of the things that I see first and foremost is that most agencies, I'll use the nasty many letter word. I haven't counted out how many are in code plug, but code plug is basically where it all begins. Got an awful lot of folks that don't study what's on their code plug. They can't spell code plug, and they are usually issued a frequency guide. And most folks, the only time that they're really, it seems to me that they're studying that is whenever they're, as you say, in the middle of a pursuit, and it's like, they whip it out and here they are flipping through the pages trying to figure out where they're going. So having some sort of intimacy with that, having it be in a format and working with your land mobile radio folks to lay out a code plug that is much more efficient for you to operate, I think is one thing that would really help an awful lot of agencies. You're not going to usually get control of your code plug, but you can certainly be instrumental in how that code plug is laid out. Then the next thing is with regard to what we've done is we've actually put in a search feature. So that search feature allows you, so for example, if you're going into the next county, into those next municipalities, you can actually put in that what should be there. And that's what I'm talking about, being familiar with the code plug. Like, for example, if you're going into Covina or you're going into Hollywood, you just basically put in COV in our radio after you hit search, and you can bring up Covina, and then they can dial out of that and get where they need to go. So that is industry exclusive for us of what we've done with the radio to make it much more usable for Manny and the crew there at LAPD.
And that's huge, because I remember for us, when I first got up to my unit, we had our radio set up in a way that we would have all the cities and areas that we wound up in frequently in a certain zone, but not necessarily organized in a way that made sense. So we realized in a pursuit that's going eastbound or westbound, what made sense was to put these cities and municipalities in order from east to west. So as you're going eastbound on the 210, if you're going to San Bernardino, you know that you're going to go to the right, the far right for San Bernardino. Or if you're going to LA County, if you need to dial in LAPD, you can go to the far left. Like having those things to where you don't have to visually look down at the radio console, you can physically feel the direction of turn on the radio head was really helpful for us. So I think things like that are helpful for folks to keep in mind. But I think the ergonomics and that goes into radio development and the visual things that you see on the radio head, you guys have done a pretty good job, or actually a really good job of creating a user-friendly screen and an interface for those folks. Can you talk about that just briefly?
Yeah, just in brief. The other thing I would add too is that along with that search feature, we also have a quick memory feature that it works just like your car stereo. So for example, you're not going to fly too far out, but if you know that these are all your heavy hitters that you normally go to, you can actually put them in the preset, and then you push up the preset, and then you would dial directly. You would be, all right, I want to talk to K9. So they're going to be 4 clicks down on once I hit Covina K9 is like 4 clicks down. I'm going to click it down 4, and I know I'm on K9 immediately. So our radio, basically, it has LAPD DNA. I mean, we sat down, and I know we're going to talk about that a little bit in this podcast, but basically we sat down and took the officer's direct input. I mean, obviously there's always going to be some guy that's like, look, if you could put pink and purple polka dots in this thing, man, that would be the greatest thing ever. And you get that, but somewhere in there, you wind up getting what's important, what actually will work for the majority of folks and be helpful. Sometimes that guy's right. Pink and purple polka dots would work better, but it's the basic thing is this has TFO, LAPD, DNA all in it, and that's what we did to make this radio have a human machine interface or a graphic user interface that would work much better for the folks in the cockpit.
We're going to dig a little bit deeper into that when in a little bit, where the interaction with Manny and Lee helped create the hardware and software final product that's in that ship. But go ahead, Manny.
Well, I wanted to go back to what John was saying about the technology has helped the position of the TFO tremendously in radio communications, but it's also hurt us. What I mean by that is LA City is surrounded by a bunch of municipal cities that have their own police departments. We have a county that we're surrounded by that has their own sheriff's agency. And all these agencies surrounding us have their own frequencies. And what we found that when it comes to code plugs, group talks, encryption, and trunking, that if an agency changes their system and we have the ability to talk to them, we no longer do. So what I've tasked the TFOs, and when we're up to TO, we have 25 TOs, 25 tactical flight officers. Each one has 3 frequencies, and quarterly, they go out quarterly and do radio checks to make sure that radio frequency is working, because the only time we were finding out was when we needed it. During a help call, a pursuit, we couldn't communicate. The man with the gun is right around the corner, and we found that frequency wasn't working because Alhambra or Simi Valley decided to change a code plug and didn't notify us, or they went to a group talk or encrypted, and we didn't know we had to be patched in. So any agency out there that has that kind of a situation where they're talking to multiple agencies surrounding their area, it's a good idea to check those frequencies. It's not much to ask a TFO to check 3 frequencies every 3 months and make sure it's working until you don't need it. So
great practice.
It's a good idea. And then like Jack said, we'll talk a little bit later of how that DNA got to the GUI up the canyon.
the last bit I'll offer before I head out is, to your point, Manny, what we would do on training flights, which we've talked about at length in the podcast, how beneficial they are for air crews from a pilot's perspective, becoming familiar with hazards that exist outside of your, normal area of operation. That was really beneficial for the pilot. Or for the TFO, what we do is like, hey, TFO, as we transition east or westbound, I want you to dial in the frequency of the city we are currently over. So as we transition from one city to the next, they're always moving and they're always kind of conducting a radio check, like you suggest, to make sure that we can, in fact, communicate with them, because we did see the same thing.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, we've been there. We've been there where we can't communicate, and we have a lone LAPD officer dealing with a suspect in another city, and they're everywhere trying to find this officer, and we can't communicate. And that's not when you want to find out you can't. Yeah. So once we find out, and it happens all the time, we find failures in our quarterly checks all the time, and then we send it to they call it X division, but our division that handles radios that say, fix it, go too high.
After we'd have the radio shop guy come out to our agency, sometimes he'd put a new program in, and you might have the transmitter receive frequency up by one small digit, and that obviously changes everything. So, it's important to continue to check those. Jack, I'll apologize as I head out. I think I stepped on some of the questions you had, but some of the stuff that I wanted to get out before I have to bail out. So pleasure seeing you guys, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Good seeing you, John.
John, are you sure you don't have any 80s music questions for Manny? I'm just throwing
Please do. This is my time to fix it.
To redeem yourself.
This should be our second installment of music trivia that we played with Tony Weber.
Dude. I'm a music guy, man. So I'm kind of bummed. that I'm going to miss the John Gray experience.
Okay, Lee. So you're a music guy. Do you listen to Boy George?
Do you really want to hurt me that way?
I'm just asking a very basic question. Do you listen to Boy George? Are you a fan? I'm just asking.
Now the rest of it listens to AC/DC.
I mean, I grew up in the 80s, I mean, how can you not listen to Boy George if you wanted to date women?
Here we go again. So now I have to get a picture of Lee sitting on the couch watching 80s MTV, which I do have of Manny, by the way. You didn't even know that I have that picture, Manny, of you sitting on your lazy boy watching Boy George.
Lies,
lies. I have that photo. It'll end up being the thumbnail unless my Venmo lights up here in a few minutes.
It's Photoshop.
It's not Photoshop. Deb does not. Oh, Deb. Oh, did I say Deb? Deb does not know how to Photoshop. John, I'm glad we're able to jump in here for a little bit, have some fun, and get some really good questions in. So go back to the bunker. Tell everybody at MHM, wish them the best from all of us.
All right. See you guys.
See ya.
See you, John.
All right. Well, that was great. I'm glad, John, you had to jump in for that. That was fantastic. Yeah. Good way to start this. So Lee, let's go back to you. We're not going to ask any 80 music trivia because I'm scared to hear what the answer might be.
Man, I mean, I think my favorite 80s band name had to have been Kaja Gugu.
Oh my!
I didn't even like their stuff, but what a cool name.
Okay. Well, so let's go back in time, Lee, a little bit, and tell us about you joining the Air Force. And what I'm most curious about is, I mean, you're in the Air Force. Your job is in radio tech, but was there an interest before you joined the Air Force in that area? And was that a sought after MOS, or did you just end up going there and learning it?
Well, I mean, so for me, my uncle gave me my first Radio Shack kit, and it just happened to be a aircraft receiver. So it would tune to 108 to 136, and I had to put the crystals in and do all the soldering and et cetera. Cool. So so it was kind of cool that he gave that to me. We used to go up and visit in the summer to Virginia, and my uncle was Uncle Zane was really a cool dude, and he saw that in me and wound up giving me that present one summer. And
how old were you when that happened?
Man, I'd say I was probably about 12 or 13.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it clicked all the way back then. It was like, hey, this is pretty cool. I like working with this. I have an interest in it. Okay.
Yeah. So then I was like always walking around with a soldering gun in my hand, and my dad had a stereo system, and I was all the time going in there and tinkering with that. And he built his own Heathkit stereo at one time when I was a child. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, Air Force was always in my blood, even though my dad literally had to drag me into the Air Force recruiter office. And I wasn't doing so good in college. And my dad was like, evidently academics is not for you. So I wound up going into the recruiter's office. I'm like, man, I'm not doing this. And Sergeant Beale was like, and it's just like a job away from home. And I'm like, away from home? Man, I'm in. Count me in. And so I wound up joining the Air Force at 17. And as a child, I grew up listening to F4s run on the engine trim pad during Vietnam. I tell people that I actually stood in the crowd as John McCain came off the 141 out of Hanoi and kissed the ground. I was actually one of the kids standing in the crowd, and then they came through our. Yeah, they came through.
That's a famous clip of American, especially Vietnam era history, and you were there. That's really cool.
I was there. They came through our classrooms at that time there at Grissom Elementary. And then because they wanted to know what it was like to be around children again. So, yeah, that was always in me even though I suppressed it and wanted to have my hair parted in the middle and listen to AC/DC, And, wow. But yeah, I wound up, and then I got to meet Robin Olds, of all things, at the base exchange in the Philippines. So my dad was like, "Ooh, it's Robin Olds," and I'm like, "Whoever the hell he is." So yeah, but always wanted to work around fighters. Always wanted to be something in the Air Force, and radios were it. And when I went to the MEP Center, they wanted me to be a cop, a cook, or a fireman. And I said, I'm not taking any of those. Well, they said, you better hope you got a good ride home. And I'm like, I don't think so. And next thing you know, avionics communication technician came up, and I said, sign me up. I'll take that for 6 years, actually, and give me the 2 extra stripes.
And they jumped, and they had open, they had it as a need, and boom.
Yeah.
So that's how that happened. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then you ended up, what's the title again?
Avionics communication technician. In the end, they put us all together, and I wound up being avionics communication navigation Doppler technician.
Okay. Because they kept adding technology as you were in.
Well, no, they kept cost-cutting measures.
Oh.
We'll put all these together.
Oh, I see.
It's all avionics. What does it matter?
Right.
So I went from being C to CND. So
okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And we talked about this in person a couple of times, and it was on some of the bio info. 22 different airframes you worked on. That's fascinating to me, because Manny knows, you go from a Jet Ranger to an A-Star, and there's differences in technology on both sides of the cockpit, and you have to figure it out. And sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, 22 different airframes that you had to understand. Were they that similar, or was that challenging?
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information.
Yes and no.
Okay.
They were that similar when it came to communications. Back then it was, you had UHF, VHF, and HF, and that was pretty much it. And if you were lucky, you had SATCOM, on some birds. But for the most part, it had an ARC 164 and ARC 186. a 618T or an ARC 190, which was the HF portion. And then you had some flavor of intercom system. And so those were all kind of the same. But when it came to, like, I think F4s, where there were several different flavors of the F4 and how it's situated, and the nav systems were all different in what they had, the radar systems, that's where it wound up being a little bit more complex, because, for example, you had the terrain following radar on the RF4C, but then when I went to the C-130, it was the APN-59 radar. So it was not trying to do anything crazy and terrain follow. It was just weather radar. So it was a lot simpler, just a lot larger scale. So learning all the different airframes, once you understood the principles of your job, you could pretty much do it all.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How many years, Lee?
I did 20 years in one day.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
But yeah, the first one was probably my first duty section was probably there at Eglin Air Force Base. It was a test center. So that was probably the hardest part, was getting all of those airframes, because there I worked C's, F4, C's, D's, E's, Recce's, an occasional G, A-10, T-38, T-39, and UH-1N. And that was all at one base. And I was a brand new 3-level. I was like 18 years old. And that's the thing that I think is amazing about the United States Air Force and any of our Department of Defense brethren, and the men and women that maintain these aircraft. You know, they take us right out of high school, and they give us a job. They teach us a skill, and then as a 3-level, as a 5-level, as a 7-level, these folks are all telling the same story, just like you guys do with your TFO schools and et cetera. They're busy teaching us our job. And we have our mentors that teach us how to do right and wrong on the aircraft. And, you know, it is amazing that we have been able to keep the levels of readiness that we have in our nation with our air assets, with the folks that we have and our dedicated maintainers. I don't think enough really gets said about maintenance. It's cool to have the cool sunglasses and the leather jacket, but I can't say enough about the folks that are out there till, 30 minutes before you walk on the aircraft, that are making that thing run correctly and keeping you safe.
Well, I'll tell you that we say it all the time, is without the maintenance, there is no mission. You're not going anywhere. You're not going to go fight that fire. You're not going to go chase that bad guy. You're not going to go pluck that hiker off the mountaintop. You need to maintain the maintenance, and that's why the MRO podcast was added, and MHM is really pushing the MRO side of things, which is good, because you're right. They're the people that we talk about the least, but probably have the biggest impact. The fires is a good example. Without those incredible maintainers during the firefighting, a lot of that firefighting doesn't get done. They were as exhausted as any aircrew in a different way. There was differences, but they were there 24/7, doing those hundreds and fixing problems and coming, hey, we got an avionics problem, bam, fixing it so that they can go fly that helicopter again. Same thing. Manny knows we loved our maintenance people because we understood that if they're not there doing what they do and how they do it, we don't get nearly the amount of work done. So it's an excellent point.
And that goes both ways. We know that maintenance exists for us to continue our mission. And maintenance also knows that they don't do their job unless we're flying. They know that. And if they see a grounded ship, they're on it. And our mission success is hugely based on our maintainers, our avionics team, and our maintenance team. But when we're talking about radios here, our avionics team they're top notch, and they are on it. They'll do anything for us, and we really appreciate them.
No doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt about
those guys are a stellar crew down there at General Services. I can't say enough about Ian and the crew. Those guys really produce a great product.
Yeah.
I just,
for those that don't know, General Services is LA, the city of Los Angeles's maintenance side for all sorts of vehicles, including helicopters and fixed wing. And we have a great avionics folks, great mechanics, top notch. And they're amazing. They become friends.
I also like to see when I go to Verticon or AFSCOT, when I see other outside agencies and I recognize them and they're walking in groups, their group includes their maintenance personnel with them.
Yep.
And then when we get visitors, I'll meet the pilot, I'll meet the TFO, and I'll meet the avionics guy that they brought too. So it is a team effort. Everybody's involved and everybody has an investment in it. I like to see that.
Yeah. And you need to interact with them, because that's how you learn. That you learn about troubleshooting is a great example. There are things that are going to go wrong with everything in an aircraft at some point. Some of them are avionics. Some of them are radios. You've got to talk to those people and say, hey, so this happened the other night. What could I have done to maybe figure out how to fix that without having to write it up and bring it to you? Is there something simple? Oh, well, yeah, it is simple. This is what you do. I mean, but you're not going to learn that unless you ask. And if you're interacting with them, we've had conversations with maintainers and about that very thing. And, the Burbank comes to mind. They have one mechanic, and he does a fantastic job. He's been there forever, and they interact with him so well, and they have figured out things because of that interaction. So really cool. That's a good point. I'm glad that came up.
Now the only thing we need is we need a movie about maintainers called Top Wrench.
Top Wrench. Hey Jack, real quick. Canyon invited us out to tour their facility, so I handpicked my boss, Lieutenant Turner.
Yep.
I handpicked a TFO, and I handpicked a avionics guy.
Nice.
Eric. And when we went out there, we lost Eric because once he saw the other geek, when he saw all those engineers, he said, "I'll see you guys later," and he disappeared. I never saw him again for the rest of the day.
See you at the end of the day,
Eric. Geeked out on all the stuff that they were doing.
Of course,
it was impressive. It was an impressive tour, but we lost Eric.
Yeah, and we have a lot of veterans and ex-aircraft maintainers in the building, in our building. So I hope Eric felt right. Evidently he did, because he took off, and like you say, we lost him.
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he felt at home, and because we have quite a few maintainers there.
Well, it's interesting how your background there, Lee, and I couldn't help but think about one of our listeners who happens to be my cousin Donnie, Big Don, Air Force radio technician. I mean, during Vietnam, he was in Dover. He worked on C-5s and C-141s. Donnie is one of my heroes growing up. He's older than me, and I just looked up to him. We talk all the time to this day. And his interest in radios was before he entered the Air Force, just like you. And he was in his dream job. And it sounds to me like you were too. I mean, Donnie was a ham radio guy. He was building the radios. It's so similar. I couldn't help but just think about Donnie and going, man, that's just like Don. He had that love and that passion, and then he got to do it in the Air Force. Now he wasn't in for 20 years, but he got out and worked for the FAA. I mean, he did a lot of stuff with VORs and things like that. But my point is that, when you have a passion like that and you can get into the military and they can train you now and give you expertise in that, and you stay for 20 years, that's a lot of stuff that was in your head when you got out of the Air Force at 20 years one day. And then you took it to the next level where you're now out and you have to find another job. How did you end up, did you know you were going to end up staying in communication?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think, a real challenge, man, because I see an awful lot of my Air Force brothers and sisters. It comes time for us to retire, and it is no slight to my service or any of the other services, but I don't think that we correctly or we efficiently prepare our maintenance folks for a career outside of the Air Force. I have attended numerous conferences with helicopters and fixed wing, and they're always, yeah, we can't find mechanics. And meanwhile, I've got friends that, are pressing the go button on the kiln down at Kaiser, or for the brakes, or they're facility managers for grocery stores, or working at the casino. I mean, these are guys that I know that could run rings, could fix aircraft like nobody's business. And now they're doing something else. And would they rather have stayed in aviation? Yeah. I mean, it's very, 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 very few of us that get to stay in aviation and get to stay what we're doing. I can't say enough to the fine folks at Edmo that gave me, that would be Joel Johnston, Jeff Christensen, that saw something in me, Fred Lopez, the owner there. Those guys are all still there, about ready to retire, actually. And they gave me my first job out of the Air Force, working for them, selling avionics test equipment.
Wow.
And I wouldn't be here sitting in the seat today talking to you guys if it hadn't have been for them. And I owe them everything. It was really good to be able to go to work for them. And then after that, I moved on to FlightCom, and I helped them develop a E13 ANR headset. And then I went over to, which was a active noise reduction headset that the military used for quite some time. And then I wound up going to a couple of different places. I was at Oregon Aero selling, of all things, it's how the Zeta liner got into the HDU 56P. So I was helpful in that. Also, finally, I think we got the Hush kit installed, worked on with the 160 SOAR on that. And then worked in another company selling diagnostic equipment for aircraft. So finally, this dream job came up 10 years ago. Almost 10 years ago. And I've been at Canyon ever since. And I can't, I'm so lucky to get to work here. I love working at Canyon. I love being here. I love what we've done with Manny. I love all my customers. It's been an absolute hoot being here and working with LAPD and working with Manny. And my DNA is in this radio too, which is kind of cool.
Manny's kind of hard to work with, Lee.
Yeah.
I don't know how you did it.
Man, I tell you.
It's a dream, man.
You say that.
Manny's great.
He's all nice, and he's all nice. I mean, everything has not been sunshine and rainbows.
Oh, I know.
Let me tell you something. Once that guy gets his teeth in your underwear, you better be watching out, dude. He draws blood.
Yeah, that's okay. That's the Marine in him. That's okay. Well, that's interesting. And we're going to dig deeper into Canyon in a minute here. But Manny, for those that don't know, everybody knows Manny now. I mean, Manny's episodes, and we'll put the numbers. I can't remember the numbers. Do you know, Manny, off the top of your head, what episode numbers? I'll look them up. I'll put them in the comments and in the outro. But Manny's had an amazing career, but we won't dig as deep this time because we're talking about communications. Manny's been on before. You can go back and really listen to Manny's story. But give us the thumbnail, Manny, of how you ended up as chief TFO at LAPD.
Right from the Marine Corps, I came out of the LAPD. And then I had my sights set on going to Metro. Hut, tactics, teamwork, all that stuff. It was just, for me, a good transition. So I was working assignments that I thought would help my resume. I went to Rampart Division. I was working nights, working for a notable sergeant out there, Jack Hoare.
Oh, legend.
A legend. I followed him everywhere, and to name a few of his followers. It was a great team concept. I was working assignments like narcotics, vice. I became a senior lead officer. I am just gearing myself to say, Metro, this is what I got for you. And then I go on a ride along with their support, Mikey Rodriguez. And I couldn't tell you who the pilot was. Couldn't tell you. I was so in awe of how this tactical flight officer worked. Changed my whole career path.
Yep.
I was amazed of his ability to take control of a situation, communicate, and have the respect from the officers on the ground, because I was those officers on the ground. I had no idea how much time that TFO had, his background, his divisions I didn't know anything about him. I just knew he was a rock star when he was overhead. He kept me safe. And I saw Mike do that from the back seat. And you could blame him. I could give him credit. But he said, you should try for it. I go, no, there's just absolutely no way I could do this.
And he was pretty new at the time. The timing of this, I'm thinking about it. He's very new, and you still thought that, and that just shows you he had it.
Good point.
He did very good, and you would never know that. I kid him all the time. Yeah. I sat in his oral interview. It was not good. and we passed him, and George Gonzalez told us in the interview, trust me, this guy, he was just nervous. It was his first oral interview after coming on the job, and he ended up being a rock star, exactly like you said, a FLIR killing machine. I mean, that guy had more FLIR kills than anybody. And you saw him early on, and it impacted you. That is really cool. I did not know that, by the way.
Thanks to our sponsor, Summit Aviation, a full-service provider for business, government, parapublic, and military aviation, specializing in maintenance, modifications, avionics, interiors, and paint. Discover more at summit-aviation.com.
So, I don't know if you know this. This is a quick side story real quick, but I was so motivated, and when he encouraged me to try out for it, I did. And I was ready for that interview. Boy, I mean, I was there early. I answered the question. I mean, I felt like I nailed it. After the interview, Sergeant George Gonzalez said, on a side note, that was very good. Who prepared you? Who got you ready?
Yeah.
That's the only question I panicked. I go, Tactical Flyer Officer Mike Rodriguez. I mean, it was the only question that panicked me. So when they went to Mikey and they said, hey, your buddy did really good. I go, he was like, who the hell's Manny? I just made him want to ride along. So it was funny, but it was I nailed every question and that was the only question that made me panic. And the only thing I could think of was fantastic.
Oh, dude, that you don't know how fantastic that is, because I'm not kidding you. I mean, Mike's oral interview, it wasn't his oral interview skills that he shared with you. He just shared with you information that you ended up putting into a good technique in an oral, because Mike's oral was awful. Right? I mean, he knows it. His collar looked like it was going to explode. He was so nervous. But George knew him from patrol. George had supervised him and said, I don't know who that guy that just took that oral, I don't know who that was. And we're like, what do you mean? It was Rick Smith was the lieutenant on the oral. And we said, well, what do you mean? He's not going to be able to communicate from a helicopter. And George goes, no. That wasn't him. I don't know what that was. That was nerves. I'm telling you, you need to trust me on this. This guy will be able to do the job. He's a communicator. He's funny. He's fun. He's experienced. He's a hard worker. And we said, okay. And boy, is it good. One time that George was right. Wow. I'm kidding. No,
and to your point, you said earlier, I think he only had barely a year ahead of me. So when I saw him perform, he was only a year into it, and he was amazing. That good.
Yeah, he was that good. He met the standard easily. I can tell you that firsthand. I mean, he met the standard easily, and it just shows you that oral interviews tell you something, but they don't tell you everything. One of the best oral interviews, and I'm not going to say any names, but one of the best oral interviews I ever sat in on ended up being a nightmare. I mean, we were so impressed, and it ended up being
the same experience. Yeah, same experience.
And you go, oh my gosh. And then Mike struggled and ends up being incredible. So to the listeners, if you're doing oral interviews, you have to account a whole lot of information. Don't just judge it on how they are speaking right in front of you. They might be so nervous and they want this job so badly that they're so nervous that their communication might not be there. But, until they're in a cockpit and you throw them into a scenario, and then you're going to see what they're made of and if they can do it or not. And if they can, you keep them. And Mike was a keeper. I mean, and just to make us both feel very old, he just retired. I mean, how is that possible? So you end up applying.
So I applied and I was successful on my load. I was transferred in, and I TFO'd for almost 7 years.
Yep.
Loved it. And I was encouraged to pursue the pilot position, and I did. And I was always driven and interested in being a TFO instructor.
Yep.
I wanted to mold how I was molded, and I wanted to just create that curriculum or be a part of a curriculum that made the standard as high as it was and kept it that way. So I became a pilot. I did that for a while until I was I requested and I was trained up to be your basic line TFO instructor. And then my predecessor.
Hardest job in air support. Do you agree?
I agree. I think the harder job is being the primary. That's when you take the guy right from patrol into the cockpit, and not only you flying, you're training, and many, many times working the call.
Yes.
In the event that and now when you land, you don't take a break. You you eat, you write your daily evaluation, and then you debrief. And you debrief more if you have to go over something that was deficient.
Right.
And then you're right back fine. It is tough. It is very, very tough. So then as I became an instructor, I became the chief tactical flight officer. When my predecessor hung his hat up and retired, I pursued the position for the same reasons I mentioned before. I wanted to hold and maintain that standard that I have lived and felt for that up to that point, maybe 10 years of being an air sport, or longer than that, 17 years. And then, so I pursued the chief tactical flight officer as a pilot. What that meant is pilots are represented by a chief pilot. TFOs are represented by a chief TFO. I was willing to give up my pilot wings to be the chief TFO. That's how important I felt that position was. I wanted to be a part of that. So I consulted my wife, lieutenant here that I respected well, and the chief pilot, and they were all supportive of it. And when I pursued it and I got it, I thought, well, okay, here are my pilot wings, and said, no, well, why would we give up that skill level you have when you could be more of an asset to the division? So they let me maintain my pilot status as the chief tactical flight officer. That's currently my.
That was very smart. I think that was very smart by the division to do that. It makes sense. I mean, when you take somebody out for a check ride now, a TFO that's in training, and you're flying, correct?
Right. And unlike my predecessor, he had to look for a qualified pilot to do the check ride while he sat in the backseat, or he had to look for a qualified pilot to administer the emergency flight training that's required by the TFOs. So I could take care of a lot of that myself without having to rely on somebody else. To do it.
Very, very smart. And it works well. I mean, you've been in it now for a while. Are you happy with that decision? And were they staying the pilot and the chief TFO?
Oh, I was very happy. See, as you remember, I was pursuing being an instructor pilot.
Yeah,
I was teaching classes. I would go to you all the time. How was my class? How can I do it better? I pull you out to the flight deck. How was it? Some of the best advice I ever got. But there was always a part of me, and this is true, Jack. There was always a part of me saying, if I become an instructor pilot, I won't fly Astro anymore, which is true.
That's right.
And my passion is really an Astro.
Yeah.
So gears shifted, and when I became a chief tactical flight officer, I got the best of both worlds. I still get to fly, and I still get to be a huge part of Astro and be part of the selection process of those who are going to be holding the standard and the traits and traditions we have.
Right. Boy, very important. So important. And thank goodness there's people like you that had that enthusiasm about that job, because Tactical flight officer position is the most difficult job in law enforcement when done correctly. I've said that for ever since I can remember, and because I believe it's true, and it's not for everyone. And finding out who can do it and training them is a big challenge. But you have really done an amazing job there. You really have. And I mean, lots of people before you and before me set us up for success at Air Support, no doubt about it. But you really ran with it. So well done. Let's talk about one of the things is you have several roles as the chief TFO. Obviously, training new TFOs is a big thing. But talk about the mission equipment and acquisition side of that for a second.
Well, as a chief TFO, I'm responsible for the evaluation of Air Support's current proposed flight operations, whether it be Astro, which is what our name is called for patrol, or special flights. So the TFOs have to be up to speed on that. The equipment that they use, whether it be surveillance or Astro, and the training program, whether it be initially training the TFOs or making sure that they're staying current with their training. Part of that is this thing right here. In the cockpit, I'm responsible for the acquisition of the equipment the TFOs use, whether it be the radios, the mixer panel, the infrared camera, the downlink system, the moving map system, and any training aids. I just was able to get granted an award grant for a floor simulator with our 380 HTC that we use. I haven't even opened it yet. It's like Christmas. But the only reason is because it comes with training. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to get Teledyne out here to give us training on that. But that piece of equipment is so complex. How do you keep everybody current in it? Because I guarantee you, we're using the toothpick of a Swiss Army knife of the capabilities of this. But using a simulator, a tabletop simulator with the actual hand control that operates the camera system, weather days, initial training, recurrent training, these guys can jump on it and be proficient. Over here is a laptop for the moving map training aid, the shot order training system we use. And then everything else is just pretty much hands-on. And once a year, everybody goes through a FLIR, downlink, and laser training for our systems that we have to make sure everyone's up. It doesn't only include our TFOs, though. I also incorporate the pilots who TFO once in a great while if we need. So to keep them up to speed, it'll never be as good as the line TFO. I mean, not as good.
Never.
Not as proficient, but I do my best to keep them proficient by including them in these recurrent trainings.
Yeah, because there's a lot of units, very established, outstanding units in the country that, where everybody's a pilot for the most part, and you go back and forth, take turns each night. You fly a half, I TFO half, if we flip. Those people, they stay current because they're doing it 50% of the time. But you get away from that, and boy, that skill diminishes fast, really fast. So that simulator is going to be dynamite to share with pilots too, and say, hey, play with this for a little bit, and you can hone your skills a little bit, because tomorrow you might be in that TFO seat and you might be over the officer down, and you might be over the perimeter, and you got to find that cop killer now. And you're a pilot sitting in the TFO seat. That can happen. So you better be proficient, at least proficient enough that you can turn it on and start searching again. And then some of it comes back to you. But the people that go back and forth constantly, they don't really appreciate how fast it goes away. But you and I both know it goes away.
Yeah, so I try to make it a point. Part of my responsibility is making sure that the line TFOs are as proficient as they can be. Yeah. And I include the pilots who TFO.
Good. Real quick, describe the importance of a high quality, easy to use radio system for the TFO.
Time, when working a call or responding to a call, time is money for a TFO, especially during a dynamic tactical situation. It's important to focus on as little energy you can on the equipment.
Yeah.
You want to focus all your attention on the situation or the tactical situation at hand, especially if it involves officer safety. your equipment shouldn't be a distraction to doing your job. And one of the qualities of communication, I'm sorry, was that the question?
Yeah, just the importance of having that quality radio communication system, of how making it easy.
Okay,
you said it perfectly there. I mean,
I want to, I just want to make sure I hit the points that the importance of the radio is quickly or timely. I hate to use the word quick when I'm training TFOs. It gets me nervous.
It's a naughty word, isn't it?
I always say timely.
Yes,
but
that's good.
identifying and switching frequencies.
Yes.
That's important. You have to be able to switch frequencies in a timely manner.
Yeah.
You have to have that ability to simulcast, something that we didn't have back in our day, right? Simulcast didn't even exist.
You were going back and forth on a mixer panel. It's crazy.
Tell hundreds of examples where simulcasting played a huge part. Looking up the frequency. We have 965 frequencies plugged into our radio system.
Oh my gosh.
965.
Amazing.
And the ability for them to be able to look up frequencies is got to be proficient.
Yeah.
Duplex versus simplex.
Yeah.
The ease of being able to go back and forth and recognize when they're not talking to you that you might be on a different mode than the ground officers, or being able to coordinate when we're going to stay on duplex or switch over to simplex.
Describe duplex simplex in case somebody doesn't know what that is.
When officers talk on a radio, it's broadcasted out. It hits a big antenna that's mounted on one of our highest points in Los Angeles called Mount Lee. And then that radio frequency gets broadcasted citywide to include our communications division. Communications will repeat everything that the officer says for clarity and making sure that it was everybody got the message. It's a formal frequency. You speak where everybody's listening to you, and it's a safe frequency because everybody is always on base frequency. Simplex, and that's the duplex mode. Simplex is like a conversation that me and Jack are having.
Yep.
We're only here talking to ourselves unless someone jumps on that frequency. And now Lee's on simplex with us because he switched that frequency, or anybody else. It's a good frequency because you can be informal. You're not going to get stepped on by communications division, and you're not going to be interrupted by any high priority call during a tactical situation.
Yeah.
The problem with simplex is if you don't switch over, or if you're giving me information that's really valid or important for everybody else to hear, no one's hearing it unless you switch over to simplex. So there's the good times and bad times to be on simplex, but it's a great frequency for tacticals, informal police jargon situations where we can speak.
Good.
That way.
Lee, I know you've got to be thinking of some stuff to add here as far as the importance and of the ease of use in the product that you bring to the customer. Talk about that, how the importance of the ease of use is to Canyon AeroConnect and to you personally.
Yeah. It's crew resource management. I mean, everybody's looking at a better, faster way to get to the information that you need. And like Manny was saying, what's important is getting those eyes, the TFO, his eyes out of the cockpit and outside and looking down at those officers, or keeping his eye on the sensors. So he can see if it's at night or what have you, so he can see what's going on, and a little less of the monkey motion of trying to get communications established and done.
There,
I think that was one of the things that we heard loud and clear from all the crews whenever we went through and did our field examination and discovery with the crews there at LA. They wanted to be able to press one button, get to what they needed, get the process started. And originally in some of our things and in all radios in general, it's usually for you to get to some of the functions and features that you want, it's a little bit more complex. It's not one push button and you have to go through levels of menus to get to what you want. And we were guilty of that too. And that was one of the things that we heard loud and clear from those guys. And that's why we customized the human machine interface or graphic user interface of the RT7. We made it to where they could quickly get to mute. We made it to where they could quickly get to simplex. We made it to where they could quickly get to quick memory or to search. Or the one that really came up that was really important was for the guys was relay. They wanted to be able to, the way that we originally had it, crossband repeat patch is what it's all known by in the airborne law enforcement community. Of you usually have to do several steps. About all the radios will do it, but the level to which they do it is a lot more complex. Where you basically hit relay, you select the radios that you want to be part of that relay, you hit relay again, and they're all relayed.
Yeah.
And then you hit relay again, and they're all off. And that was key. That was key for the crews there at LA. They were like, look, man, I don't have time to be going through all these steps to do what I want to do. I just want to be visual, quick, clean, concise, clearly communicate to me what I want to do, and it does it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key thing is getting to the end job or end result as quickly as possible with as little muss and fuss as possible.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about our display. Just the fact that you can actually read it in direct sunlight and you're not having to put your hands over and cup and to read the thing. You can see that's the other beauty of it is that it can be seen from 170 degree viewing angle. So when I was going to jump in earlier and call Manny Twofer when he's being the pilot and then he's also being the TFO instructor, he can clearly see on that display what is going on. He's not having to wonder is he on the right frequency?
Yeah.
Is he doing what he's supposed to do? Manny from across the cockpit can clearly see what's going on that frequency, or he can say, hey, I need you to hit tile 3 so I can see what's on there. And then Manny can clearly see what's on the tile if he's sitting in the pilot's position, where other radios he wouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
It's,
Understood.
It's
That's
very,
a big deal.
very difficult to see.
Yeah.
And to tailgate on that, Lee, real quick, a lot of agencies do experience that. With age comes the deterioration of the on-screen reading, where you are cupping or you're trying to squint your eyes to see what it is. The clarity on this on-screen touchscreen radio it makes easy for the tactical flight officer, and if you're an instructor or even a pilot, it makes it easy for them to look over.
Yeah,
easy.
This may seem like an obvious question, Manny, but you know, it's important that we kind of bring this all into perspective of why the ease of use is important. And Lee said quickly. You said timely and quickly. You know, there's a reason that you're saying that because of the types of scenarios that your TFOs are over every day. Describe the scenarios as they relate to the ease of use and how that fits into the scenarios that you know your air crews are going to be over.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers. Thank you to our sponsor, Canyon AeroConnect. Canyon AeroConnect has been a trusted leader in airborne law enforcement communication since Paul Wolfsburg introduced the first flight phone in 1970. While our name has evolved, our commitment to innovation and quality remains strong. Contact us today at CanyonAeroConnect.com to explore our latest mission-critical solutions.
Thanks to our sponsor, Airbus. Airbus provides the most efficient helicopter solutions to its customers who serve, protect, save lives, and safely carry passengers in demanding environments. Its civil and military helicopters are flying all over the world, making missions possible. Visit airbus.com for more information. Thanks to our sponsor, Summit Aviation, a full-service provider for business, government, parapublic, and military aviation, specializing in maintenance, modifications, avionics, interiors, and paint. Discover more at summit-aviation.com.
We hope you enjoyed this episode with Manny Dickerson and Lee Owen. We wanted to look at communications from a unique perspective, and their combined experience certainly brought us a lot to consider. Communication has always been the key to success in law enforcement aviation, and when you combine good training, With modern technology, you are well on your way to successful missions. Thanks for listening to the Hangar Z. We really appreciate your support and your loyalty, whether you're listening or watching. We feel very lucky that all of you are supporting us in that way. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. We certainly do appreciate it. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you the next time on the Hangar Z Podcast.